Obviously, just a look back, I know I had time with the trustees, our board of trustees a couple weeks ago, and did a little bit of a recount and look back. But by all accounts, last year's academic athletic year, 24-25, was as good as any we've had at Clemson, with 3 ACC championships, certainly back to college football playoff for football program, most wins in school history for men's basketball, one of 3 schools that finished the top 25 end of the season polls in our 3 revenue driving sports: football, men's basketball, and baseball. And so that certainly matters from a business, a revenue standpoint, of course, but obviously with 21 sports, 550 student athletes, 16, now 17 head coaches with our new co-head coaches in gymnastics. The comprehensive, the broad-based nature of our department, I couldn't be more proud. And we're going to continue to lean into football as we always have, from an investment and a business lens, of course, let alone just the prominence of what that means for our community and our institution. But the broad-based nature of that, and as we look back on this past year, was really, really a testament to that. Growing record revenue from annual giving standpoint, certainly with IPTAY, has never been more difficult from a discretionary giving and contribution standpoint for those that love college sports and are passionate about it, certainly like our fan base is. So the continued success and engagement and commitment from IPTAY and staff, record ticket revenue. Ultimately, that means record number of attendance and butts in the seats, so to speak. Really just a special year. Over 1 million fans visited our events and venues at Clemson, and certainly a record number of students as well, with our part of the number 1 student experience at Clemson. Always important as we look intra-campus, intra-student body standpoint. Savannah Bananas in April was an event unlike any other. It's been cool to watch their engagement nationally throughout the summer. The Neff boys have been locked into that with Philadelphia and Baltimore maybe this past weekend, and Fenway. And so the fact that we were the first environment like that, at least from a big football stadium standpoint, and what that has meant for our community, but also it's indicative of, and you'll see more, our fans will see more of those type of non-sport type of engagements down the road. Obviously, it's easy to think to concerts and things like that, but we're very active in what that strategy could look like, deploying our facilities throughout the year, certainly the engagement within our community and our fan base, and then certainly a revenue component of that as well. So more to come on that, but the Bananas was a really cool start and litmus test for what that could look like, and we're eager to have more of that in the years ahead. Certainly, we're around the corner later this month with August 30th with the LSU game. I've often said, from an industry standpoint, the industry of college athletics, I think, is the hardest calendar flip from July 31st to August 1st. July, it's a little lower key. There's no events. Feels like there's summer planning. Teams are training. You flip to August 1st, and it's like, holy cow, we got a game later this month, and all the teams are back in session, and school's about to start, and we got to do all this by the first game. And so the fact of flipping to August 1st, and now we start to look ahead very, very much so towards games and events. We had a women's soccer exhibition game at Riggs yesterday in some of the weather, which was kind of the first I guess it was an exhibition and competition, but getting started. And then again, we're 3.5 weeks away from Under the Lights against LSU night game. Power of the Paw has never been higher. We're going to continue to double down on our brand, our prominence, viewership, certainly a component of that now more than ever from an ACC standpoint. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Happy to host ACC Network, The Huddle, here for that game. Saw the announcement from the ACC a couple weeks ago with The Huddle moving around now to a different selection of games within the ACC home games this year. Huge deal. ESPN, ACC Network have been really nimble on that strategy. We've been really part of that push, so to speak. So we'll host The Huddle on Bowman Field for that Saturday of the LSU game on that August 30th. So really excited for what that looks like for Clemson, local home games, but then ultimately in support of the ACC and ACC Network and ESPN in regards to that. And lastly, certainly just the continued monitoring and engagement within the landscape. And the landscape of college athletics couldn't be more dynamic. It's been incredibly the rate of change over the past 3 to 5 years. I feel like I've been at this podium, so to speak, and talked on the rate of change and the dynamic nature of college athletics annually. And we've certainly seen a lot of examples of that. You've seen a lot of our strategies around what that looks like, but our anticipation and my job is to make sure we're being strategic and nimble for what that rate of change looks like for the coming 3 to 5 years, so to speak. And that's our focus ahead. The implementation of the House case settlement has certainly been front of focus, couldn't be a higher priority for us in our department. Certainly what that looks like locally with the deployment of our revenue share dollars. We've talked about that. We are, without question, fully funding and all in on our revenue share distribution strategy of how we allocate that amongst teams, and ultimately the strategies with in support of our coaches to deploy from a roster standpoint across many of our sports. Scholarships, we've talked about that, but really to emphasize our lean and leverage into broad-based scholarship additions, 150 new scholarships, again, supported by IPTAY. So much of the ethos here at Clemson with IPTAY since 1934 and that scholarship investment and what that looks like across the board. Again, as I said earlier, football continues and will be our investment strategy from a business standpoint, but broad-based sports, 21 sports, and that allocation of additional scholarships, 150, is significant. Previously, we had 275 scholarships kind of collectively, and adding 150 to that is significant. I'd argue, I don't know the data on this, but from a per capita standpoint, that might be the most or as big of an increase of any other school in the country. Something we're incredibly proud of, and again, across all of our sports for that type of deployment. And then lastly, and certainly probably the most moving or still being figured out amongst all of us is commercial NIL, right, and how that looks within NIL Go under leadership of the College Sports Commission. The build of our commercial NIL infrastructure is the highest priority. And for as much as we are all in on revenue share, 20 million, like a lot of schools like us, that differentiator for us of how we leverage and facilitate commercial NIL is significant. It is one of our main focuses ahead. Certainly, Clemson Ventures is an initiative we announced a year ago, I believe, here, and has local or has internal revenue generation strategies to it, but it was absolutely done a year ago in anticipation of our ability to facilitate and be strategic around this type of NIL type infrastructure. And so there'll be more to come on what that engagement looks like within and alongside Clemson Ventures in IPTAY, and how that will be a leading edge for us as we look to support our coaches in 21 sports and build rosters above and beyond just scholarship allocation, which is significant, and our revenue share deployment that we've talked about. So there's plenty there. Again, the nomenclature of landscape is something that's broad-based, and I think we're something going to lean into it. I'll start with a question in the back. Yes, sir.
Mr. Neff! Dabo Sweeney with Clemson. I just wanted to know.
Thanks for being here, Dabo. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to know how your summer went. Were there any amazing vacations that you went on?
You missed my opening remarks around big day in the Neff house. Oconee County Schools, first day of class. Grady's in third grade. Emmett and Nolan Neff started kindergarten today. So I know you and Kath have been there, been a couple decades now, but a big, big day.
Mr. Neff, one more question. Follow up, Mr. Neff. How often does Larry Williams text you?
Larry who? Yeah, I'm just trying to get on the Dubcast. I just want to do a pod. That's all I want. That is. Why is he coming in that way? Like, I don't even know. Interview upstairs. He already hit the slide. Is he going down and up and down and up? Yeah. With that, I'll open it up for any further questions from the group. Listen, again, a lot to be excited about as we look back, look ahead. That's just a little bit of an overview, but look forward to the discussion wherever we want to take it.
Talked about commercial NIL. Obviously, one leagues or the other piece of that. The CFC had modified the guidance there. What is kind of the expectation of 110 society, if that's still a thing that needs to exist, or if there's other ways that you guys can get those collective type deals to players, if that's still important?
Yeah, John, really important. I think if you look at the landscape, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And there are a lot of schools like us that have maybe sunset or closing their prior collective. There's some schools that are keeping those. Some schools that are really leaning into their third-party multimedia rights provider. And we're incredibly unique with the play with Clemson Ventures. That being said, how we think about it, one, the intention of the House case settlement and with College Sports Commission is that the role of collectives is going to look different. So while they still certainly can exist, and again, there certainly are those that are going to function, the role for them to facilitate commercial NIL deals is the differentiator. And so I think for us, whereas 110 Society, which served an incredible purpose in tandem with IPTE and with our boosters to really generate revenues from a booster fundraising standpoint, that looks very different now. And so for us to lean in and facilitate from a commercial NIL business standpoint, that best aligns with Clemson Ventures. And the fact that that's a in-house nature for us, and that's an entity that already engages, their role is to generate revenue from a commercial standpoint, businesses and sponsorship, so to speak. The ability for us to have underneath Clemson Ventures an agency-type role and facilitation for commercial NIL is the unique strategy. And so, yes, our ability to flow deals through Clemson Ventures is how we're going about it. I will say, too, from our fans and donors standpoint, we're going to continue to need engagement from events that we'll set up via Clemson Ventures and other activities, events, appearances. We're going to really lean into Clemson Plus, which is an existing mechanism that we've had for content and direct share platform for our student athletes. And so how we look to reposition that for donor engagement that think we can facilitate some commercial NIL dollars that way. So it's just very different as far as what collectives or how NIL, commercial NIL is intended to look. And it's going to be more comprehensive in nature. We're thinking about it, Clemson Plus, Clemson Ventures, some appearances and events to be able to build that above the cap type dollars. That's going to be incredibly important.
You said college athletics is dynamic right now. I think others have used, less flattering terms to describe it. How much faith, or what do you make of how quickly things, I don't want to say fell apart, but people are describing it as that, and how much faith do you have moving forward? Guardrails and structure and all that.
Yeah, I don't love the word guardrails like it just personally. It feels like really limiting in nature for student athlete empowerment and valuation, let alone just how you operate. I get the point of it and the word that's often used to your point, Larry. Structure important. I do think that the House case settlement, creation of CSC, College Sports Commission, and the aspects of scholarship increases, revenue share distribution, those are pretty straightforward, pretty structured. While there's local strategy around how you deploy rev share and all that. So I love the ability to be really strategic and different in how you go about it. The leading edge and really where you're getting at from a commercial NIL standpoint, and we're 5 weeks into the creation and launch of that methodology, that regulation, so to speak. It's 5 weeks in. Like any other startup, there's going to be learning, maturation, bumps in the road. We've seen that, and so I think we're experiencing that. I'm confident that the structure, the innovation of how schools, Clemson in particular, will find the way to navigate within that structure in a competitive way. That's our focus. So we know what the intention and the rules are around, and we're certainly going to abide by those in a very aggressive way. While also, and I'll maybe end in this way, Larry, we're set up to be very nimble and flexible. And as we've seen the rate of change over the past 3 years and how it's something we've been very sensitive to is our communication or consistency even to our donors and supporters financially. We're talking to them one thing about, hey, where we need your help in dollars, and then I feel like 3 months later it's a little bit different, and then 3 months after that it's a little bit different. And so that confusion is really hard as we've been managing it, and then we try to simplify it and try to have a very focused message and strategy outward. All that to be said, so we're going to be very direct in that, but also we're just going to have to be very nimble on how things continue to adapt.
As far as playing South Carolina on Saturday, I know Dabo has said he's okay with it. Columbia is not okay with it here. Are you kind of with him there that never in Clemson?
Never say never. That's also a Dabo phrase, right? But yeah, that was it was a decision. I know it's had some trailing discussion on it, understandably. But that was that was an opportunity a year ago or whenever it may be, and we made the decision at that point to for our game here to want to still play it on a Saturday, and obviously the game in Williams-Brice this year is also on a Saturday. So, is that going to come up annually or every year? Not sure, but should it? Like we're gonna we'll make those decisions when it comes up, and so that's not a never say never, but it is part of the fundamentals of the discussions that we had and Coach Sweeney and staff at Clemson was around the importance of Saturdays and after Thanksgiving and what that means for our community and student environment and high school football and playoffs and all that stuff. So there's all those aspects that would continue to be part of the discussion or the decision that will handle those when or if they should show themselves down the road.
Alcohol sales, you kind of had a big, week one game for that in football. Just how do you feel about rollout of that, how the pilot program kind of went this spring, and what people can expect sales-wise and maybe safety and other stuff-wise?
That's right, Chapel. The fan environment safety is going to just continue to be the leading decision matrix on how we roll it out. As we look back for the spring, really pleased with how that rolled out. No significant fan environment or safety concerns. I think it was well managed. We're continuing to staff up towards the management of what that looks like, recognizing that games in the Valley and certainly the first one has a different order of magnitude. Revenue was significant, about $500,000. Great. That's not the why, but that's a component to it. Look forward to rolling that out, not only just in football, but the rest of our venues this fall as well. So we'll have some information on that coming out.
I know it's hard to look into the future, but let's do it. Let's say that Clemson's ahead of LSU with 3 minutes left and fans crowd the wall and you beg them not to go, but they go anyway. Do you pay the fine? What happens after that? Do you say, hey, please don't do it again, or do you say, hey, this might end? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about it, David. We gather the paw tradition is really, really special at Clemson, really unique, and something that, as you saw our statement from a couple weeks ago around the ACC policy, something that we want to continue. Now, it's got to look different. We're going to abide by and support the new ACC policy, and so we need our fans' help with that, in recognition of that we're trying to balance respecting the unique tradition and continuing the unique tradition that we have, while also respecting the policies that are at hand and just the safety and environment of what post-game field looks like, particularly after charged games, LSU or otherwise. So all that to be said, we are working on what the sequencing and what post-game process looks like. Certainly over the coming couple weeks, we're going to communicate to the fans of what that looks like. I'll double down and say it again. We need our fans' help and support and recognition of that. And it's a really passionate topic for me, too, in particular. And so we're going to manage each game as they come, 7 a year, maybe more, depending on playoff circumstances. And so those are our expectations for the first one, for our LSU game. And we'll go through our post-game sequencing and respect and manage from a safety and an ACC policy standpoint, see how the first game goes, and then continue to adapt and adjust from there. And here's the other thing. It's easy to think through 7 games at Memorial Stadium, and certainly the first one, but it's also Little John and, all of our venues. But we've certainly had our fair share of environments and court stormings and that type of celebration in Little John as well, to the credit of our men's basketball program in the last couple of years. And so those type of event management aspects for all of our venues, obviously Memorial and Little John being the 2 primary, are really important that we communicate and clear and ask for the support of the fans and the students, right? Students are so much of the leading charge for that in all of those venues. And so it's a really highly focused task for us over the coming couple weeks.